Welcome to the Independent Artist Podcast, sponsored by the National Association of Independent Artists.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. I'm Will Armstrong, and I'm a mixed media artist.
I'm Douglas Sigworth, glassblower. Join our conversations with professional working artists. Hey, I don't know about anybody else out there, Will, but I've had Freddie Mercury and David Bowie running through my head all week. Under pressure, dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
No, not that. I'm with you. Sure, because we've got a spare hour to talk to each other, right?
Fire up the computer.
Oh yeah, it's been that kind of day though. I got out to the studio today, and I get a call from my delivery driver. You know, I've got some panels coming. I work on these large panels, and I'm like, yeah, I've got 4 of these big panels coming. Well, I'll be there in 45 minutes.
Okay,
like. Maybe that's not a big deal to like your regular, ordinary folks, like civilians, but like with an artist, I can't get my paints out. I can't get my lines flowing. Like, I swear it takes me like 30 or 45 minutes to get going. And I just done paperwork. So I'm like, I was ready to go. I'm like, 45 minutes? What the fuck am I going to do with 45 minutes?
Right.
Just sit there and like...
You're like, Douglas, let's record now.
I know, right. You got 45 minutes? I'll give you 15. And it takes us a minute, too, to get going, right?
Totally, for sure. Yeah.
Before it's listenable and we're communicative and there's some stops and starts, but... God damn, you got an hour to spare, buddy? Do you?
Yeah, right. Barely.
Yeah.
So the pressure since like the last time we talked, I can't remember if the last time you and I actually recorded a conversation, if I had any resolution with our glass blowing furnace, but that has been the most pressure I felt in a long time because we weren't sure if we were going to be able to get the part to replace, to get the whole thing operational again. It might have been like a complete and utter rebuild, which would have been weeks and weeks out for somebody to even make us the electrical component to our furnace.
We always, I don't know, we lateral, we figure out other things. We figure it out. We figure it out on the road. Sometimes you just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think last time I was on packing and getting ready for Rittenhouse and getting ready to drive to Philly, and that's the reason I had all of my panels shipped, because I was going to pick them up on the way and save on the shipping, but had to cancel Rittenhouse because of more vehicle issues. I can't imagine as a listener hearing anything more boring.
Right. Okay. Oh, Douglas has got problems with his feet. Oh, Will's got trouble with his truck. It's like our go-to, right?
Our furnace problems.
Problems, right.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm not going to bore you with any more truck problems, but I did think I found a van. I actually sent you a link. As soon as I sent it, I saw what was wrong with it. You know, I'm like,
why it was too good to be true kind of thing?
I'm like, it's a brand new 2023 black van, tall F-350 Ford. And I'm like, it dropped another $1,000 while I was sending you the text. I'm like, this looks way too good to be true. And I sent it to you. And as I sent it, I see the like, take a look at this E350. And it was the E that got me. Yeah.
Plugging it in along the way to Denver.
Right. Can I put a gas engine in that fucker and run a generator off the back? Those E things are purely for around town.
Yeah, right.
They do not compute for what we do. It's like it can go 187 miles on one charge.
Okay.
Like, oh, that's half of what I'd get with a 30-gallon tank of gas. So,
right. Oh,
the search keeps going.
Yeah, man. I was going to say maybe the only other thing that would have made it more perfect would have been if it was red, right?
Well, it was black. It was cool. I liked that.
Totally cool.
I like a little bit different than the regular white ones, just because I can't remember where I freaking parked. But right. No, it is interesting though. We've gone on, and we are certainly not endorsed. The podcast should be, because we're getting ready to talk vans a little bit. But you know, I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'3", and say 5'9" of that is leg. You know, the rest is my giant head, my torso.
What are you, a spider or something?
Yeah, basically, just a big spider monkey. So I've got those legs I got to put in those things, and the Dodge is actually more comfortable.
Oh, gotcha.
the Ford has better seats. The Dodge has more leg room somehow for me. It doesn't give me the dead knee cramping that you get from just sitting in one still spot. But then the Fords are more reliable, according to a lot of the reports and according to a lot of people's opinions. And I can say this, it's again, not endorsing, but I did I had a buddy who was the head diesel mechanic at Mercedes.
Sure.
Wiry little bastard, and threatened to whip my ass with this wrench he was holding if I ever bought myself a Mercedes.
Okay.
But
because they're just so expensive and hard to get.
They're really hard to work on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're really hard to work on. For the mechanic, he's like, I know you're going to come knocking on my door every time you blow something on this thing. But God damn, don't do it. So it does take a lot to repair those.
And there's a Ford dealership in every podunk town across the whole country we travel. So we feel pretty much like we could pull in somewhere and get some help if there's a problem on the road.
I've driven everything, at this point. I had a Ford that I really loved. She was a bit of a fat bottom girl, though. She had
there's our recall.
The dually. Yeah. The dually in the back. Yeah, it's a Queen episode.
There you go.
So she was a dually, and she was shaking her hips when you go down. I remember getting down to St. Louis one year in that thing and realizing I can't make it down the street. It's too tight. I'm going to have to go over the curb. There were poles on either side. I'm like, I got a dolly,
Jeez.
So the dually won't make it. That was too big. That one got crushed by an oak tree. Okay. I don't think I've ever told that story before, but
like in a storm, it was parked and a tree came down on it?
Yeah, it was parked back behind my house. And I actually, I have this cap on the back of it, and I had one sacrificial painting that kept the cap up, that kept the tree, like a 300-year-old oak tree, from completely crushing my pro panels and all of my art. I was able to slide my pieces out still out of this mangled cap. I mean, it looked like you'd been chewing on tinfoil.
That sounds like it could have been like a disaster, like you'd have to file major insurance claim on something like that if you had insurance.
It was, for all of that shit, it was pretty lucky because my art was protected. I had really good insurance, so that I just replaced the truck. I didn't die because it landed right next to where I was sleeping.
Oh,
and
wow!
Like it could have crushed, like right where I was sleeping, it was gone off like by a degree. I would have been dead. Wow. Occasionally, that thing will pop back up on Facebook memories because once they pulled the tree off, it looked like a human form where it was like where it had mangled the truck.
Okay.
I climbed into the big divot of it and acted like I was like, oh, there's been a terrible skydiving accident.
That sounds like something you'd do.
Sure. Why wouldn't you? Hey, more Facebook interaction, right? You love that shit.
Okay.
I'll post that on our Facebook page.
Yeah. So the thing I was thinking about when we were dealing with this furnace repair was, things go along so smoothly. You don't have problems or hiccups along the way, and you kind of take those moments for granted that become a little more stressful. And trying to figure out if this furnace was going to get fixed, I actually thought to myself, is this really the end? I mean, is this the point where we're going to have to shut things down? Is this really like a career-ending move? And it was right about the time that the Heckers or somebody had posted something on social media it was a post about how entrepreneurs have to endure a level of stress that would break most people. And that's really, I think, what we deal with a lot as not just as independent artists, but as also entrepreneurs running businesses and stuff. We're even more risky than somebody that has a storefront or whatever, because there's so many unknowns that we deal with on a weekend by weekend basis going off to the shows.
Yeah, it's true. Do you think that would have done you in?
I don't know, because I started to think, where am I in the course of our career? This furnace got us 16 years. The bright side is we were able to find the main part that has been discontinued, used on eBay, and it worked. The electrician got it up and running, and everything about it is great. So now, last year I rebuilt the frame of the furnace, the insulation, whatever. Now the electrical is all brand new. So if we have another 16 to 18 years out of this system, this is going to take us to the end of our career, I hope, So We'll see.
Sure.
Until
I would
next
like to
week
see
when I
that,
say
like-
this broke down.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see that too, where you're just like, you get a flat tire, like, I've had enough. That was it. I'm never doing it again.
It is so physically challenging to work on this furnace. I'm not even kidding. That you told a story one time about backing a trailer up in your mind, fantasizing about just dumping it in the river in Chicago, because they're so fucking stressful to deal with.
No, I really almost.
No, that was real.
I checked the lock on the gate to see if I could get it over.
Okay,
I was like,
well,
if I could get, my buddy Andy down here, he could help me hoist this thing. What is it? Probably only 1,100 pounds. I could probably, use that to pivot. I had it figured out.
did you?
But then I'm looking up and I'm like, cameras.
These
Goddamn cameras. So
can't do anything nowadays.
no, can't do anything fun. Can't throw trailers in the river in Chicago.
Can't get away with shit.
See that thing.
No.
Like, see it just as it's flipping over and you get a flash of the VIN. You're like, there's the VIN. Ah, you go after it.
Got him.
Oh, God. So, I'm helping out this emerging artist here, right?
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah.
they said something to me that I was going to just get your impression on before I drop the hammer on my impression on the air.
Okay.
So they were like, they just said it as an aside, and it goes like this. You're only as strong as your weakest piece, right? She goes, it's like the old adage, you're only as strong as the weakest piece. What do you think about that?
I don't think so.
It's bullshit. It's the biggest bunch
It's
of bullshit I've ever heard in my life.
Because you made one piece that didn't go over well or whatever. I mean, that doesn't negate all of the other great work you've ever
It's
made.
exactly what I said. I was like, whoa, hold up. It's like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. It's like that, back up. I'm like, man, hold up. Let me say that again. And she said it again. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's complete bullshit. I don't know what kind of academic horse shit origin story that statement has, but it doesn't fly in our line of work. It just doesn't. It's like,
No.
you might make a piece that you think is terrible, and maybe
First to sell.
sure,
First to
always
sell.
right. It's the first to sell. Maybe it had something to do with portfolio.
Oh, okay.
Like if you in your portfolio, it could be. But man, I just bristled every part of me. Like it just sounds like such pinky out academic
It totally
horseshit.
sounds academia, doesn't it?
Well, you're only as strong as the weakest work you've ever created. It just kiss.
All right. No kidding. God, that's a total fuck you on that one for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was interesting, and it got me thinking. Like, have you ever been given any terrible advice that's handcuffed you?
Ooh, geez. Okay.
Like maybe not even advice, but like just a critique or something that's hurt your career.
Well, this was from an academic, and it was something that we didn't take on. We decided when we were in college and planning on being art show artists, there were more components to our life than just being professional artists. We wanted to have a family. We wanted to do this, blah, 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 blah. So we were married. We decided to start our family. Renee was pregnant. And the reaction from this instructor was, did you really think about that? Like being an art fair artist and having a family? I know now, going through life and raising kids on the road, that it's hard, but it's still worth it. I mean, I wouldn't take the advice that we shouldn't have kids and be artists. So that kind of stuck with me over the years, that was advice that didn't fit us very well.
Yeah. I had a completely brutal portfolio critique, honestly, right after college that I had this guy. He was a friend of a friend who I'd always admired and just ripped me a new one. Honestly, it hiccuped my whole art career for like 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. I did other things, went into bartending, and yeah, I didn't even start my own body of work until I was in my 30s. So you have to be careful. Granted, I could have had a thicker skin, but who that guy was and my opinion of him at the time, yeah, it just totally crippled me.
Yeah.
Stunted my artistic growth, I guess, for years. Went into framing and worked at a frame shop and did a whole nother body of work. that
Wow,
wasn't
that
even
really
my own.
wasn't a pivotal kind of a statement. You know what I mean? That impacted you. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to find him. I'd like to fight him.
Give him
Let's fight.
flip him the
Fight
bird and
that
say,
guy.
"See where I am now? I could have done that a
Nah,
lot
I would.
sooner."
Well, he didn't care, you know.
Yeah.
He that's fine. It just was it is what it is.
I guess I always scratched my head sometimes. I mean, we've had different instructors over the years, art related, and I sometimes felt like the politics of critiques, I felt like I could see through some of it. Like it sometimes felt like you'd hear a comment to one person. It's like, I totally don't agree with you at all on what you're saying. And it's like, you know what I mean? So I always felt like I had a little bit of distrust or thinking just because you're in this role as a professor or an instructor that I still wanted to keep my own sense of what I think. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to be swayed. But I don't
That's
know.
a really good point. It actually reminds me of this great Ken Kesey quote from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay.
Where I don't know if you're familiar with the movie, the Jack Nicholson movie at all. Did you read the book?
No.
Okay. There's a quote from the book
Mm-hmm.
where McMurphy's in the insane asylum and they're having to do a talk. You know, they're talking in the round. And it reminds me so much of art critiques and school critiques when you're sitting around the room talking about paintings. He's like, it's a hen pecking party. And they start pecking at each other.
Wow.
Like this reminds me of college.
It does.
And it reminds me of art critiques.
Like so, another student might want the instructor to notice their brilliant take on something. You know?
Well, that's it. They're getting judged on how much they rip the other person down.
Yeah.
And because part of your grade at that point is you know, spoken word and how you can be clear about the way you feel about art. And so people just start ripping into each other because it's a grade.
Mm-hmm.
So
bullshit.
Anyway,
bullshit.
I could try to find that quote if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I would love it.
It's a short quote. I'll just go ahead and read it.
Okay.
I'll recite it because I'm that smart. That's how it really is.
Okay.
I've got it. I didn't have to get Douglas to pause, and I just had it at the ready. The flock gets sight of a spot of blood on some chickens, and they all go to pecking at it, see, till they rip the chicken to shreds, blood and bones and feathers. But usually a couple of the flock get spotted in the fracas. Then it's their turn. And a few more get spots and get pecked to death, and more. Oh, a pecking party. Oh, a pecking party can wipe out the whole flock in a matter of a few hours, buddy. I seen it. A mighty awesome sight. The only way to prevent it with chickens is to clip blinders on them so they can't see.
Nice. Yeah.
I have to get Chicken Matt in here, see
There
if Matt
you go.
Hemminghouse has ever seen a pecking party.
Peckin' party.
You know, I'm not anti-academic, totally, at all. I just
Really?
feel like
You kind of
the set of advice that you get from people who are in air conditioning doesn't always apply to people who are out on the street listening to Motorhead while they're setting up their booth.
No response. No response is a response.
Sure. Silence is a response, right?
This episode of the Independent Artist Podcast is brought to you by Zap, the digital application service where artists and art festivals connect.
Douglas, I'm thrilled this week that we are being sponsored and supported by Zapplication.org.
It's really great that they appreciate what we're doing here on the podcast.
And I appreciate what they are doing, basically because I feel like I'm an intensely lazy man. And they make the entire art show process, signing up for shows, a lot easier.
And you know, they have that tagging feature for us. That way we can put little notes about a show to help us maybe with building that perfect tour.
Or you can write whatever you want on it. You can write, hey, this show sucked last year, but it had promise.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be exactly what you need it to be. And I appreciate that extra bonus feature.
Yeah, me too. Kind of back to that pressure thing, you know? I think this is the time of year where all of us, because, I mean, don't you feel like these 2 months are really where we've been working our whole year for these shows. And a lot of times these shows hold a lot of weight for providing income, you know, more so than other times of the year. Other shows might be more filler, but these shows are kind of the shows that we kind of bank on. And then to have, you know, things not going right or things getting in your way, that can really take its toll.
It does. It's the arc of it's like a narrative. The whole year is.
It
you
is.
know, it builds up and it builds up, and then this is the climax of the story.
And when I feel like we got these shows that these really killer shows that we've been working our whole careers to kind of line up, It doesn't happen regularly for us. And to have a nice run and then to be like, oh, and now you can't produce work for them, asshole. You know what I mean? It's like that other shoe dropping on you.
I run into this thing, like I was so ready for Rittenhouse, like I was ready for the single booth and to do that, and then to to come back and then whatever sold there, finish the pieces that are in my studio and take them to Des Moines and Cherry Creek. Instead, I didn't get to go to Rittenhouse. I break down, limp on home. Now I'm like, my energy is not there. It's a different than panic. It's boredom. I'm dealing with that. It's like pre-show boredom where I'm like, well, I was ready for Rittenhouse, but I'm not necessarily ready for these two, but I finished these couple of paintings and I'm kind of like, it's not like I'm ready, but I'm like, I need that validation of a show because I haven't had one since April.
Yeah.
So
I get
I'm
what you're
kind of
saying
like,
on that.
It's hard to kind of get motivated because I sometimes I schedule shows and not necessarily because I need them financially as much as I need them mentally to like break up the year. I'm no good at like, if I could make all of the money for the entire year at one show, if I had the work, I still don't think I could just do the one show because I wouldn't be able to be ready for it. I wouldn't be able to motivate myself.
To make the work or to be like, have the energy up for the, you know what I mean? For getting to the show or
not just getting to it, but it's like, if you told me that if I worked all year long, right, that I was going to sell every piece, no matter how many paintings I made for that one show in August, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm just making a show up. You know what I mean? Just there's a magic show.
Let's pretend it's like a COVID bubble all over again.
Yeah, just like I'm just going to have the magic show and I'm going to sell out in my first show. So make as many paintings as you can. I'd probably make, like, say if I make 40 paintings in a year, typically, like getting ready for a show, if I just had all of that time to get ready for the one, I'd probably make like 30 paintings. Like I just wouldn't be motivated. I'd be in the studio just spinning my wheels. But like I need that fire under me in order to get going.
That back up against the wall kind of thing.
Always,
like the tension. Yeah.
I need it. Yeah. I need that burn. I need that. And I also need to break it up because I get super bored in the studio. Like, all right, I made that. I don't know if it's any good. Let me hear somebody talk about it. Okay, that's good. That's a good direction. I know which way to go now. Like I've got this new kind of direction I'm going in and I'm kind of like, haven't really shown it. And I'm like, is it good? It's
good to get the reaction, to see, even if it's like not even talking about it, just to see their expressions. You know what I mean? Any of it, just to get something.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm like, all right, I've been in the studio long enough. Somebody needs to tell me I'm great. You know, nobody's told me I'm
someone
great
who's not related to us, right?
Oh, my wife is so sick of me. She's like, yeah, she's awesome, super supportive, but also like, baby, I gotta do this instead.
Yeah,
like I gotta make my own. I don't have it in me.
You know who else has it really rough out there right now with stress and pressure and everything are the jewelers.
Yeah, that is insane, man. I mean, we always kind of try to talk about the element of a jeweler. It's so much harder than what I have to do as a 2D artist. I do better if I'm not in my booth sometimes and I leave people alone and let them breathe and I walk across the street as long as I'm keeping an eye out and I'm aware. But if you turn your back on your jewelry, it's like, here's an $8,000 piece that you can literally put up your nose and hide. Like I just can't.
Yes.
Like it just disappears.
Right.
Like,
or even feelings like everyone who walks by might be like scoping you out or making a plan for later on at some point. And it just seems like the whole theft thing is always out there and it seems to circle back time and time again. And we have another situation where somebody was the target and it's really upsetting. And
we have not asked for permission from this artist, but it's a very well-respected, award-winning artist here on the circuit. You know, a kind of beloved member of the community, but she had her entire inventory stolen from her hotel room. She was cased. The door was kicked in at her hotel. The jewelry bag was taken, and all of her life's work is gone. and you can just take it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're talking about. The stress level of knowing that all of your work can be taken from you. They cannot turn their back for 1 second on their booth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can watch their booth, that's great, but it's not like watching your booth.
Right.
You've been my neighbor before and be like, hey, it's you and Renee, but if it was just you,
Yeah.
be like, hey, keep an eye. I got to go.
Yeah, we could stand literally in the middle of the street looking at both booths and not have to be like a hawk. You can just kind of keep a general eye.
But you cannot do that.
Right.
You have to be there behind the desk, behind the cases. You have to watch. You have to be on. And it's a different thing. And if there's two of you, volunteer to your next door neighbor and be like, hey, I see you here. There's two of us if you ever need a bathroom break. And it's not just women, it's men as well. It's a whole
new level of violation to know that somebody followed this person to their hotel room. The artist wasn't there when it was stolen from the room. Is that true?
Luckily, yeah.
Luckily,
that's
that would
the
be
way I understand
nother,
it. Yeah,
a whole nother thing to have to deal with. I mean,
right. Also, here's another thing: never say jewelry to somebody when you are out at a restaurant. Oh, do you have your jewelry bag? Don't ever say that. Never say jewelry. You always say, hey, can I watch your books or your book bag?
Yeah.
Just say your books or have some kind, we always have kind of a code for it too. It's like,
that's good to know. I wouldn't have thought of that, and that makes total sense. But I would have been the one who stick my foot in my mouth and announce to the whole restaurant.
Oh, did you bring your jewelry in? Yeah. And that
is,
God, my wife she was traveling solo, went to a bar with a bunch of artists, and there was another artist who was just announcing to the dive bar and be like, I'm so jealous of you. You get to take your whole inventory right there with you in your back. You got your jewelry bag, blah, blah, blah. She's got a bag of diamonds and gold. It's like,
give me a break.
Yeah, it's just be respectful. Be kind. Watch out for people. Walk people to cars.
Be aware.
I mean, like, hey, can I walk you to the hotel? Can I do this? It doesn't take very much to really be incredibly generous to a jeweler. So watch out for each other out there.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing too, it's like, how do you even notice who it could possibly be? It's like, well, did you notice anybody suspicious? Anybody asking about, well, everybody asks what it's made of. If you've ever worked a jewelry booth, hell, what is this made of? Well, it's 18 karat gold. Oh, nice. And what's the carat of this diamond? Oh, that's a half carat diamond, blah, blah, blah. Look at the clarity. I mean, everybody wants to know the thing. They want to know. And you got to have the prices out in order to at least attract the actual people. But that attracts people that want to go take it and cut it up and scrap it. So,
is there anything that an outdoor show, I mean, I know a lot of the indoor craft shows will have like jewelry lockup and stuff like that. But is there anything that an outdoor show can do to help a jeweler in these kinds of situations?
St. Louis, it's funny. I was just talking to a friend of mine, like, oh, great. I'll see you at this show. And I can walk you to the car if you need help. And she was like, actually, St. Louis offers police escorts to jewelers to their cars.
That's amazing.
Amazing, right?
Totally.
But then again, too, I mean, wouldn't the police much rather escort somebody to their car than
have to write a report?
Yeah, right. Have a big case.
Theft? Yeah.
Right.
Man. So gosh.
Brutal. It's brutal out there. If a jeweler pulls up in a Volvo hatchback and unloads their vehicle in 15 minutes and carries their shit out in a suitcase on roller wheels before you've even taken your first painting and put it in a box, don't be jealous, because everybody's got, when you want to talk about walking there's a whole nother burden of that.
Yes.
The rollaway suitcase could roll away into somebody else's car. The amount of stress that these folks are under is absolutely unreal. So,
well, this is something I wanted to also bring up this week. As art show artists, things happen in our lives. Weddings, funerals, all these kinds of different things. And it's like, yeah, but I got the show this weekend. You know what I'm saying? It's like life happens and we have to like really choose our priorities. And I had that happen just this past month. I lost a very dear family member. out in New York. And a lot of the art fair artists know of her, my Aunt Darlene, but she's my mom's oldest sister. And it's like, I'm like, I can't go. I've got these things I need to do. And I mean, the family understands that the kind of life I live, but I kind of feel shitty about it. You know, that's kind of like, I can't be like the person who puts in for, you know, a vacation or paid days off or whatever, because this is what we do, you know.
Right. So it's the same with almost even worse sometimes with like weddings, because they're living and you're there for a wedding, you're there for the living, but that's the same thing with a funeral. You're there for the people that are left behind. But you know, these celebrations, I missed my niece's wedding. Oh, I can't go, and it's like, God damn, like you really can't. I mean, some of these shows are like major significant portions of your income for the year.
Right.
But I do regret, I regret that one. If I had that one back, I wouldn't go to the show, and I had a killer show. So I don't know.
Even
like,
then,
what do you do? Like, I promised my wife I'm not going to miss any more of the nieces and nephews' weddings. But there's so many of them. There's so many. No, I mean, they're all in their 20s and it's going to start happening.
Well, my Aunt Darlene she was a riot. She had so much energy, and she owned a store in Katona, New York. And it was like a gift shop on the train station going into New York City. Wealthy community. They would stop in, grab the paper, whatever. And she was really well known in the area. Her and my uncle, they have a winter place in Florida. So when I first started doing Florida and I was on the road by myself, they allowed me to stay with them as like, you know, like in between shows, as like a home base.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. But so when she was retired from her store, these art shows were very similar to the kind of like trade shows that she would go to. So she would love to come. And she was very New York. She didn't take shit from anybody. And so we'd have customers come in the booth. And, you know, I'd have a little bit more finesse about things, but she'd have no problem basically saying, if you want this piece, which is a more expensive price, but you want it for this other piece's price, then you buy the one for the less expensive and you take that one with you. You get what you get. And you're basically like telling them, you know, make a decision, shit or get off the pot.
Right.
And so I had so many fond memories of that. She actually started getting dementia fairly early. And so I would still bring her to the shows. And a lot of the artists were, you know, they knew her. They'd hug my Aunt Darlene. A lot of them would think she was my mom. And she'd start to forget stuff. And she'd go on the loop-de-loop. And it was hard to catch at first because she always repeated herself.
Right.
And so it kind of snuck up on us. But I don't know if this artist was aware of this situation. But when I was like, she can't come to the shows with me anymore because she didn't like a friend of mine's work who was my neighbor. And she kept saying, Dougie. She's the only person who could ever call me Dougie that I would not call me Dougie.
Yeah, don't anybody get any ideas.
Yeah, right. She'd say, Dougie, I don't like that stuff. I'm like, oh, I would go, shh, it's okay. And then she'd forget she said that, and minutes later. So the whole entire show, I'm trying not to hurt my good friend's feelings because my aunt, it's like how you would treat your kid, you know?
Right.
It's pretty fond memories, and I will miss her, but it was one of those slow deaths because she was a Spitfire, and then she became super like meek and quiet and almost nonverbal. Right. So it was almost like we lost her a while ago, but now it's final. So anyway,
yeah.
I appreciate all the artists out there who are really sweet to my aunt. And so I just wanted to give an update on her and her situation with that.
Yeah, very, very sorry to hear about that.
Thanks.
Yeah, to take this and go somewhere completely different. I used to be in a band when I was in Richmond, and so I know a lot of musician friends. And you know, I've got these musician friends that are posting on Instagram, and you know how I feel about AI. I've made myself abundantly clear. But I see gallery owners and they're sharing AI image. Oh, look at this amazing thing. And I'm like, can't you see this is AI? You're detracting from your own artists. You have a whole gallery full of art. Why are you sharing this AI? And then I started to feel that way. Like any creative person, like sharing these, you know, AI generated memes and all this other stuff. It gets under my skin because it normalizes taking away the job of an artist. Like, that's how I feel about it.
Well, I have a question for you on that. I'm sorry if am I cutting your point?
Maybe, but I don't care. Go for it. What do you got?
Okay, so I've heard you talk about this, about how you feel about how it takes away from an illustrator, a human doing it. I don't always know if I can tell. I mean, how do you know? Except for the 6 fingers on their hands. I mean, really, what is the takeaway?
Sometimes it just says it. Sometimes it says it's AI. Okay. Like right now, there's just a look, and you can kind of tell. And it's blurry around the edges, and it all looks kind of the same. The fancy portrait of the person, it's like, oh, look, it went around for a while. It's like, here's me as an astronaut. Here's me as a pirate. All this stuff. I can see it. So right now it seems fairly easy, and the lines are going to get a lot more blurred as things go through. But like, I don't know, one of the bands that I really like, they formed a new band, and they were like, well, I've been fooling around with AI, and I came up with an illustration for every single one of our songs on our new album. And it made me mad at first. I mean, I'm like, well, this is like a 3-person punk band in Richmond, Virginia, playing to 25 people and really pretty much just playing for fun. Like, am I going to get mad at Crack Fox because Crack Fox used AI to illustrate their songs? Right. I'm like, yeah, because it normalizes taking away real art. Like, so that, I'm irritated about it for that, because the more you normalize it, the more you normalize. And here's what makes me mad about, like, so I was trying to think about a way that I could accept it, because it's here to stay, right? It's not like just
Genie's out of the bottle. Yeah.
Yeah, me standing in the yard shaking my fist at the clouds is not going to change things. So is there a way to normalize it? And I'm like, and what I came around to is like, does it hurt anything to have these guys illustrate their songs when there's no way they could afford to hire an illustrator and they're just screwing around? Probably not. But then I saw AI at a major show, and the major show was doing a good job promoting their artists, and I don't want to call them out by name, but I see this and I'm like, well, this is clearly AI. It's a photograph that couldn't possibly exist in real life. It's AI.
And is AI and digital gets also really blurry, like, right? I mean,
well, yeah. And if you let AI into a show, and the artist is loud and proud about it, oh, well, this is AI. Well, isn't your audience going to come back down the street and say, well, look, that guy made that himself. The only thing that's different between him and me is that he has a printer and I don't. So I think you can't let the AI in, because then it dumbs down the show to the point where the audience feels like they're getting tricked. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
Like, if the audience feels like they're getting tricked, they're like, oh, well, this is AI. This is a thing. Like, oh, well, let's just go home and make it ourselves. Like, that's basically, when I see AI at a show, you're just trying to convince the public to go home, figure out how to print it yourself, because it doesn't take any skill at all.
Yeah. I guess the AI artist becomes a curator. It's like,
don't say it. That's no such thing.
Well, the AI manufacturer,
all they're doing is punching it into a prompt. That's not an artist.
And it spits it out, and they say, well, I would show this piece because I like the way it looks, but I won't show that one. That's all they are. They're showing whatever the result is.
Right. And I love photography, right? I don't have a big collection of it or anything, but I do stop and I see photography, and I love, there are certain photographers that I always want to stop and see. And we just had Clifton Henry on our show last week as kind of a throwback to first season, because we wanted to get that talk out again. And I'm like, well, if I'm putting a show together and I can get that guy in my show, then that's an anchor point. He's got a vision. He has a voice. He has a certain perspective that is unique to only him. And so I want that in my show. I'm like, if I've got that, it's like, well, this is going to be an artist that is an anchor point. And I say that so I can say this, because here comes the reverse side. I don't think if you're going to continue to let AI into shows, like it's going to kill photography and it's going to kill digital.
I think so
because people are going to stop letting those into shows. And I think that's going to be a real shame. So I don't know how to stop it.
Well, thinking about
maybe I don't.
What Cliff said in his talk, just about finding your voice, what your authentic voice is, what you want to say, and not straying from that. That's what the artist is. It's not just pushing some buttons and having a cool effect pop up and being like, ooh, somebody will like this. This will be something that'll sell. It's got to have something behind it.
Yeah. And I've heard people say too, it's like, well, it helps me come up with the new ideas. And it's like, well, it shouldn't. Maybe you should have the ideas yourself.
Right.
That's maybe you should have your own skill in order to maybe that was shots fired.
Yeah, shots fired.
I keep saying I don't know, but I know.
Yeah, right.
I know.
I know what's going to happen.
I really have a very strong opinion. It's a shame I don't have any kind of outlet for it.
Wonder who will listen to what you think about that one, Will Armstrong.
I don't know. Here we go.
Well, when you say that AI is going to kill those categories,
it could. Right? That's the big danger.
Yeah.
The more people cheat, the more cheaters there are, the more people making this stuff up, the more there is. You're going to cut some people that are out there that I really respect, that I would want at any show. It's just a really slippery slope.
Well, speaking of that slippery slope, I also have had the thought lately about when a show that maybe was once an anchor or a big show, when they kind of stray from their vision and how things can kind of slip away from them. You get new people in running it and they have different intentions. I thought maybe we could have a conversation about what is it exactly that we want from an art festival? What is it? Is it just a venue? Is it just a strip mall somewhere that bodies walk through? I know what I want to say, but I want to give you an opportunity to say what you might react to with that.
I mean, it really all depends on the show. I've certainly done shows in parking lots, and we all have, and we know what we like. Hell, I mean, I'll do whatever I can to go to Cherry Creek any year I am invited, whether they are forced to do it in that parking lot like they did COVID years when they had so many hoops to jump through, and did an amazing job getting that thing going no matter what.
Yeah.
That's a parking lot, and that was their only option. It still had the charm. What do I want from a show? I know what makes a good art show, but at the end of the day, I want money.
Yeah. We want the buyers. We want the audience who's going to actually pony up the money and want to live with our work.
Yeah. Keep your bags of Cheetos. Yeah. It's always a nice perk, but I want an audience that responds to my work, that buys it and takes it home. That's really what I want, right? I don't care about prize money. And
I think that once a show starts looking at features or looking at things that might bring more bodies, but not thinking about who those bodies are, I think, it might not happen in 2 years, but in 5 years, those collectors who used to come and say, this is a reputable place and I love everything I'm seeing here, they're going to stop coming. And it's hard to bring that back, because what happens then is the collectors stop coming, then the artists stop applying. They're like, oh, why do we have a dip in our applications this year? This has always been our weekend, right. and then you can't get that back. You've lost your focus.
You've lost something, and if you lose the focus, I mean, we talked to Camille Marchese about that when she was on the show, and she has the unenviable task of trying to bring a show back that did lose its focus, and it's a fight, because they're like, well, if they're willing to spend $1,000 a booth, and we have 1,000 artists, that's a lot more money than 180 artists. It's like, well, it's just that's the loss of the focus, and it dumbs it down. And I'm kind of being a little obtuse there with saying I only want money, because that's nonsense. I mean, you've heard us over the years in the last few months. You just got back from Artisphere and talk about the absolute king's treatment that show. That's part of their charm, and that's part of their focus, and that's part of keeping us happy, and that's part of their whole vision with the community and community event.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is really hard, and I think that does tie in with AI. As soon as a show starts letting art that's not actually art,
soulless art into the show, or soulless product.
type a couple words, prompt art.
So I know we do have a lot of show directors who listen to what we think on this podcast. I remember a talk I heard from, is it H.C. Porter? Does she run the Mississippi?
The Ridgeland? Yeah.
And I remember she did a talk for, I think it was a NIA, one of those conventions they did back when they used to do like show director meetings or conferences or whatever. Yes. And she had said that as an artist launching an art show, every decision about how to do the show, it was put through a microscope. And it's like, does this take us a step away from our goal or a step towards our goal? And no matter what it is, if it's a step away, then we eliminate it. And I think that the big thing has to be getting the qualified people into the show to come see the work and purchase the work. Now, they can't control if people actually take money out of their pockets and buy, but they know that they can have a good jury. They can have a good quality amount of exhibitors, and they can have it the right size so that it's setting it up for success. The rest of it is up to us as artists to show up with our best work and to engage with the people and to make the sales,
Yeah.
So
how do you attract the buyers? We're getting ready to go to Des Moines, right?
Yeah.
You and I are both going to Des Moines, and I know we've had Stephen King on, and sometimes I feel like Stephen King has pre-talked to the people that are coming to the show. It's like, okay, now don't embarrass me. We've invited these people in from all over. I expect you to be on your best behavior. And it's like the people that come in and they just seem like they're all ready for it and they understand it. And he's done such an I'm not just, I've already got my booth. I already got into the show. It's a very well juried show and all the stuff. I'm not kissing any ass here. I'm just saying how it is. But I feel like that is a full-time job of constantly educating the people and keeping them aware that this is their one big art buying event. This is a fine, well-tuned show. Your favorite artist from last year might not get in this year. Mm-hmm. They're doing this thing. Some shows have it a little bit easier. They can put a show on in the wealthiest suburb. It's like, well, these people are qualified because they're dripping in cash.
Yeah,
it's a little different. So,
well, how do you get the art buyers there? For one, you jury an amazing show, and you keep jurying an amazing show, so that when people come, then word gets out.
Sure.
It is a small community of perhaps art buyers out there. And then maybe there's a bigger community of like event goers, let's just say that.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting point.
Yeah. And then the director needs to know, how do I market the people who are in the know or in the market to buy art? I'm sure there's art centers, there's publications that are geared towards those types of individuals, and that they should market in that direction. And those are just my ideas off the top of my head. Anyway.
Yeah. Also, the volunteer program, making it a community event. I can't tell you how many people I've sold to over the years that have volunteered at shows, that have then brought their friends and neighbors to the booth and be like, oh, this is the person I was telling you about. It becomes this community event.
They have like an investment in it then at that point. Like they almost feel like they're partners in producing the event.
Right. How do you change a show that take this? I've got an example here, but like a show with a tried and true audience, like the Armadillo show in Austin, Texas. Like they've got a tried and true standard audience that comes to the show. Well, Austin, Texas is also dripping with tech money. That is completely unaware of this show that's existed that has its core audience. And like the show is what it is, and it's got its core audience and it does well with that. But if you could bump it up and get that tech audience, how do you expand the awareness of an existing show that already has a kind of maybe a certain kind of folk that already come?
That's a good point. But I also think,
like, how would you? Like, that's a real question.
Thinking back to Cindy Lear.
I'm asking you. You're not answer the question.
Okay, well, I am going to answer the question.
All right.
I think back to what Cindy Lyric talked about in her conversation, where she said a lot of shows, they only focus on themselves and how they've done it and how they've always done it. And I think it really comes down to networking with other shows that are kind of fit your model, because you can learn from them. And you can maybe learn, oh, how did you expand into that audience? So like your example about the tech people. How do we market those people? Because it's not just in Texas, it's everywhere. It's the future, it's the present. It's, you know what I mean? And so how do you get those people there? And maybe other shows will say, I have had success getting these types of people there. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just networking. And talking to the other folks. There was a director's thing that happened in Oklahoma City. Were you aware of that?
Peripherally.
Yeah. I mean, we're not directors, so they didn't invite us.
Right.
But I thought that was cool because, like, we know, I just mentioned her a second ago, but Camille from Miami, and the fact that she's hobnobbing over there with like Robin Markowitz, who I think very highly of back from my days at Bethesda Row.
That's right.
Yeah, she ran Bethesda Row for a while and had many good years there. And so anyway, I already have a relationship with her. I'm like, yeah, I want you two to talk.
Yeah.
It feels good. It's like when you're at St. Louis and you see, the directors from other places and you're like, running the emerging artist program is Stephen King from Des Moines. And it's like this who's who of art show people that they kind of get together.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I know that Oklahoma City, since the director has taken over, that is a concerted effort to make changes that are good for the festival and good for artists. And so I believe amazing. That Seth Lewis has also been instrumental with networking with other people. So maybe that's one of the reasons why it was actually held in Oklahoma City, like that you brought up.
I remember I was talking to one director and somebody, I don't remember what the conversation was about. And we're like, well, it would be so much more helpful if the directors talked. And the director was like, oh, we talk.
Oh, we talk.
We just don't tell you people about it. We don't want the word to get it. No, they talk. Trust me. They're talking.
Right.
It gets out. They've got their things. But it's really cool. That's a great idea just to talk to, because I don't know how you'd get the new audience that is new to the city to a show that exists. But somebody does.
Speaking of talking amongst ourselves, artists do that quite well on these art fair groups, like Art Fair Review and all that good stuff.
Get to work.
It's true. It can be distracting, can it? The stuff on social media, all of it is a step away from us getting our work done. And you're right. So when you say we talk as artists, no, we should be focusing on our work and not talking about shows.
I hate it when people talk about shows.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
We just did.
Oh, that's our entire business model. That's boring.
Hey, so we've had all these shows. Renee and I, the 3 shows that we did this year, were quite an investment for a drive. And as we were driving home from our last show, I thought to myself, this is so delightful. We drove home from Milwaukee, 5 hours. We're home. I'm like, what, not 2 days? And I'm thinking, Will can't go anywhere in 5 hours.
I've got Des Moines is 6 hours from where I am up here in Minnesota.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's only 6 hours away. And I'm actually, because you set up in the same day, so I'm going to go down and hopefully I'm going to go down and stay with family in the cities and then go, so it's only 3 hours away.
And it is. And 3? I thought it was 4 when I come the same route, but
You drive like a grandma.
Thank you. Why, thank you. Hey, I have one more thing I think we wanted to talk about here. You have something about the commission hostage negotiation?
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Well, do you ever deal with this where you have a client and your typical commission goes, here's your invoice, your piece is ready to ship, it'll ship tomorrow.
Okay.
And then they pay it and it goes out. And lately I've had these hostage negotiations where they're like, well, I'll send you the payment as soon as I get the piece. And I'm like, well, no, it doesn't really work that way. Or somebody else texted and like, as soon as you have a tracking number, I'll pay the invoice. Like what is that? No, that imagine I'm a store. You know?
Yeah.
I'm not going to order something from online and then I'll pay you as soon as it shows up. Like, there's got to be a little faith here.
Right.
Do you have any of that, or is it just the dirt bags I'm dealing with?
It must be your dirt bags. I have not had that, but I get I thought when you were talking about the negotiations, it's like when they want you to kind of stray from your own vision and they want something specific or different. And they're like, well, can't that glass have a little bit more of this color in it or that color? And how do you negotiate your way through those conversations? I wasn't sure.
Well, sometimes with those people, I'll like, unless you really need the money, I'm like, well, I know like 2,000 artists.
Yeah. Right.
They're around the corner. Why don't you, like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do what you want me to do as well as they can do what they're already doing.
Absolutely.
So why don't you go around the corner and talk to those guys?
They already do it.
And
yeah,
like you can just go buy it.
Yeah.
And he went around the corner and like he was so happy. Like he came back with a painting and he was like, I found this. They're amazing. It's exactly what I'm like, yeah, thank God. Like I don't want to get stuck trying to imitate. I'm like, yeah, that's not what I do.
Well, sometimes to me it feels a little bit like a therapy session. And maybe it's just the collectors that I that I seem to attract. They're like, I like it exactly the way it is. It's perfect. And then they'll do but could you do this little thing? And they get in their head like it should be more like it should have like a strand of this color in it. And then I have to do the explanation. I'm like, blown glass is not like painting, like colored glass, there's a chemistry aspect to it that when the colored glass intersect with each other, it might in your head be great. It might be like, doing a watercolor painting and this beautiful shade comes out of it, or it could be nasty as all get out. And you don't know what you're going to get. And it's a waste of time and energy, even just trying to make a sample of it. You kind of have to talk like a therapist with them and point out what they love about it and get them to the place where they're comfortable making the decision to just go with it, as opposed to like having a hang up that is so manufactured in their brain,
Yeah. Sometimes I run into people that forget what my work looks like, 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 do you even know who I am?
Right.
We've been talking all this time. And they're like, oh yeah. And I want this in color and that in color. And then this is a so-and-so. I'm like, I work in black and white mostly. Like,
right.
I don't even think you know.
Are you thinking you're talking to like the artist from booth 327 or?
Yeah. Like, oh, you're the artist that does. And then the similarities that people see within your work just because you're in glass and you're like, oh, your work is just like Amber Marshall's. And it's like, it couldn't be any less like Amber's.
For sure.
Like it.
Yeah.
And all the time. And you're like, oh, you look just like, I'm like, well, thank you, because they're really talented, but no.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Like, oh, you were the guy last year that painted wildlife.
It didn't suddenly shift to somebody else.
Like, what? Like that's a different guy. Get to work, Douglas. Go back to work. Are you working again? Yeah. Are you going back into the shop or no?
The studio is up and running. So we've been back to our early morning, crazy 3 a.m. blow times because we have to beat the heat. So we're recording here at 4 p.m. and it is almost my bedtime.
All right. So don't get to work. Go to sleep. Go have dinner. Go hit the early bird.
There you go.
Get out of my face.
All right.
All right, brother. Take it easy. I'll see you in Des Moines.
See you on the streets of Des Moines.
All right.
Appreciate it, man. Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by the National Association of Independent Artists. The website is naiaartists.org.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. That's zapplication.org. And while you're at it, find us on social media and engage in these conversations.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when we release new episodes.
Oh, and if you like the show, we'd love it if you would give us your 5-star rating and offer up your most creative review on your podcast streaming service. See you next time.